Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another edition of the Daily Crypto Byte. Today is Monday, August 23rd. And how about this price action, baby? We got some nice price action starting about, last night in the Asian session. And I think it really teed us up for a very exciting week, CJ. So let's dive right into it. But before we get started, how are you doing on this Monday morning, my friend?
Doing well. Good start to the week. Hope everybody's doing well out there. Bill Parker, yo, I see you. But incredible news today. I also want to touch on the Delta variant and a potential peak that Tom Lee was really referring to. And so we've actually seen some of that data posted today, if I could just pull it up. But we had been talking about this kind of in the past couple weeks and how this would be kind of the prerequisite to the everything rally, so to speak. And so if we look at the 7-day Delta cases and a 7-day moving average specifically for the largest counties in Florida since June, we can see that we pretty much have a confirmed peak in nearly every one of these counties. And so I think that's taken a lot of sell pressure off the market, relieving a lot of fear from investors, as not only Bitcoin's up today, but we also have the traditional markets up about 1%, S&P up 1.2%, Dow up 0.6%, and even the IWM is up 1.25% today. So nice to see the traditional markets breaking back and crypto going well too.
Yeah, CJ, across the board, this looks like, Bill Parker's putting it out in chat right now. He likes the sound of an everything rally. All factors considered, this week is looking like it could be a very bullish week for both traditional equities and crypto. Really the perfect storm. We're breaking above critical levels, have strength in the traditional equity markets. So I really do think this could be a very positive week for the markets in general. So you want to hop right into the charts and do some TA here?
Yeah, sure thing. And a lot of times we do see Monday and Tuesdays really set the tone for the overall momentum of the week in these markets. But touching on Bitcoin first, last week we had highlighted this kind of very basic Elliott wave pattern right around here at around 46. And ever since we've broken that initial resistance of 46K and have now come to our next resistance level at about 50 and $700 as well. So that final Fibonacci level is really the only thing holding us between that and 56K. And so from a logical TA perspective, I think I would say, a pullback is, appropriate. I would expect people to take profit. Being said, I think you have to have an understanding of the fundamentals and what's been going on in this market all throughout our recent accumulation period. And that has been that the supply has been sucked up and kind of really accumulated by larger players in the market. And so those who wish for a pullback in these particular instances, many times Bitcoin just leaves them in the dust. I mean, it's happened to me many times. And it's just part of kind of its nature. So while, a pullback from a TA perspective may seem logical, I'm still riding this trend because of the illiquid supply being so hard in Bitcoin. So I think we could go up certainly to our next resistance level here if we are to break through. But as of now, I'm still kind of just riding the trend. If we look at this from a weekly perspective, I think the weekly chart is extremely constructive, especially when we talk about the RSI and the MACD. Something that I really think we can learn from here is noticing this negative divergence in retrospect, right? When we had price going up, yet we had the RSI going down. That was an instance of our bull market actually losing momentum and hinting at a possible decline. Then we entered our reaccumulation phase when RSI basically didn't do anything and just remained flat. But now we're coming out of that, breaking out and moving towards new highs in a very constructive weekly chart, as that MACD also makes a very nice bullish crossover. And we still have strength. We still have a lot of convergence in the oscillators, and really no reason to get out yet. Still just riding this trend, and there really hasn't been any sign of weakness at all yet. Looking at the S&P, I just want to take a quick glance at this because I know we had talked about that one critical moving average that we had bounced from many times. And if we really zoom out, man, that is quite the bullish engulfing. Anyways, bullish momentum all around. Exactly what you like to see on a Monday morning. But I'll pass it back to you, Monty.
That is exactly the thing you like to see on Monday morning, CJ. And I think you made a great point about Bitcoin. Looking at the daily chart and those critical levels we're approaching kind of paints a picture that we may hit some resistance here. But when you look at the, weekly chart, Bitcoin looks ready to roll. And I agree with you about the liquid supply factor. I think that ties in nicely as a transition to Ethereum because Ethereum, I think, everything you said there about, even just demand remaining constant, I think could be applied to Ethereum even more so than Bitcoin here. And, this thing is looking strong to start the day here. I want to go back to a point that AJ Monty made on our webinar last week. He was looking to enter an ETH position as it kind of tested back down. He was looking to enter at 2,600. Obviously, that's not going to happen now, but he did lay out an alternate scenario where, if ETH does break above 3,500 here, this critical level here, then he'd consider entering a position. He said he would even, skip scaling in and perhaps enter in 100% here because there is very little resistance until the previous all-time high of 4,300. And I think, going back to CJ's point about illiquid supply, with the Ethereum improvement protocol coming out and now adding this deflationary element to ETH, even if demand just remains constant, and I would argue demand is going up, we've seen an increase in institutional facing companies looking to get exposure to ETH. So I'd say demand is rising, but even if it wasn't, if demand was staying constant, price would still rise because of that newly introduced deflationary element. So, like CJ pointed out with Bitcoin, there may be some profit taking as we approach this critical level of 3,500. But that being said, I think riding this trend could be very profitable in the next couple of weeks because we're just seeing such strong momentum. There's very little resistance until the previous all-time high. And all those factors that CJ just mentioned with the macro strength of the market and, just the fact that Bitcoin on a weekly time frame is looking set, to perform very well, I think bodes well for ETH as well. So just watch out for this. Watch for a break above this critical level here at 3,500 because once that happens, I really do think it's going to be a quick move up to the previous all-time high.
I agree with you, and I'm glad you mentioned the scarcity within Ethereum because technicals are kind of just one part of the equation, in my opinion. Like you have to apply technicals, of course, but have an understanding of the fundamentals within the structure of the market. Like we just went through a massive accumulation phase in which a ton of retail traders were scared out at prices like 30K, 33K, and now we're starting the markup phase. And there's virtually very, very high illiquid supply left. And that means we could really keep going up, even despite some technicals. I mean, I remember all the way going up to 20K and then 30K. And all the analysts are saying, all right, well, the RSI is overbought. We're overbought here. But it doesn't matter when you have a supply squeeze that tight. And so we may end up seeing something very similar. But we'll just have to watch. Some other interesting news that I wanted to mention, Monty, before we get into the Doge of the day, just has to do with FTX
Yes.
and a massive contract. Well, I guess I shouldn't say massive, but it is a 10-year contract on Cal Berkeley's Memorial Stadium. And so that's going to be FTX fields for the next 10 years and a $17.5 million agreement with FTX. So congrats to that cryptocurrency exchange. It's really good to see mainstream adoption and just more of crypto being ubiquitous and being in the public light.
Yeah, absolutely. And an interesting little backstory as to kind of how that happened, or I guess why it happened. The CEO of FTX actually was a walk-on at Cal. So, going back to his college days, sponsoring the field with crypto, pretty badass, if you ask me.
Rudy. Sounds like Rudy.
Rudy with a stack of crypto. CJ, we have lots of comments in the chat, and I think we'd be remiss not to talk about this today. How about Cardano, ADA? This thing is just ripping, hockey sticking as we speak here on the show. Any thoughts on this thing and where it may head in the coming days here?
I think this is another great instance of like illiquid supply and what a constraint of supply on the open market can do to a cryptocurrency, especially Cardano and ETH. Since we have so much of these cryptocurrencies let us set aside for staking and 2.0 and things of that sort, we've just seen parabolic advances. And people have been excited about Cardano and smart contract development. I'm really excited to see developers start to build on Cardano and be able to create new aspects of DeFi, not only on Ethereum, but now on Cardano with their smart contracts. So congrats to that team. And I think we're really just seeing all that excitement being reflected in price. But yeah.
Yeah, and to the initial question of like waiting for a pullback, I don't know if that's the way to play this thing. I think that this was an instance of Cardano, finally getting, I think, some of the attention it deserves here. With this Alonzo fork coming, we're going to see tons of development happening. This is a long time coming for Cardano, and there's no reason why this thing can't keep running, especially if the development sticks and we see some useful utility pop up on chain. I think that this thing could continue to run. So definitely, I think has the potential to be one of the best performers for the second half of this year. But CJ, before we get to the Doges of the day, we have a little bit of time here because Doc's not on, but we have a question here from Ralph. He's essentially just asking about exit plans at the end of this market cycle. And I know you were talking in chat with some people earlier today about, what it's going to be like transitioning to a sort of bearish mindset. Any just things you can quickly tell Ralph here about sort of how you plan to play this exit strategy and, what you may do towards the end of this market cycle here?
Yes, incredibly important question because we have a long bias in crypto because a lot of the retail exchanges, especially for beginners coming into the market, don't allow shorting. They don't allow you to bet against price. So there's virtually no way for the, intro to crypto user to really profit on the downside. But it's important to be able to know how to play and profit from the volatility in both directions in crypto because there's a ton of downside volatility in crypto. I've seen certain traders especially back in like the BitMEX days when they went short. Monty remembers this one trade from some of our friends, but they went short with like one Bitcoin right before the COVID crash and then made, like 3x their money in one night. But the point is, when we get closer to the top, when we see things like stock to flow reaching its pinnacle and we see the pi cycle top and the reserve risk, all those macro data models that begin to look more and more overbought, yet retail participation continues to increase, I think that's the optimal time to start scaling out. Maybe be in like thirds, I think is how I plan to do it, maybe fourths. But overall, I would be shifting that capital from crypto assets, including Bitcoin, to things like USDC, stable coins that yield interest, and looking at getting a relationship with some type of brokerage or cryptocurrency exchange where you can feasibly short and you're comfortable with that interface. The only real way that I'm looking at shorting right now is practically on Kraken. That's feasible in the US. And, those strategies will be applicable, I think, in the next coming months if we are to see massive declines after like a massive overheated rally and whatnot. But I think those are the important things to focus on and kind of being proactive right now because it seems like we are in a bull cycle and are continuing to accelerate.
Yeah, 100% agree with you, CJ. And I feel like I personally, as a crypto trader, have learned so much just this last year alone about, you know, taking profit. And I think at the end of this market cycle, I think scaling out is going to be such a valuable tool here because, CJ, you talked about, the negative divergence we saw in the RSI and how on the weekly chart, that was a good indication that, perhaps we had topped in the interim. We talk all the time about the CMF and that negative divergence we saw. The pi cycle top, in hindsight, was a great indication that we had topped in the interim. There were many indicators, and if you had scaled out, just 30% on any one of those, you would have more or less sold very, very close to the top. And I think that's something that I'm definitely going to try to, do more like scientifically this time around, is not let the emotion get the best of me, if I see, a negative divergence in any of these indicators, I will take some profit off the table because, if we see the momentum dying down, that's a good time to scale out and move into USDC. And once we start to see, a convergence of all these negative indicators, then yeah, I'll flip short like CJ was talking about there. So definitely going to be a critical time for the crypto market. But I feel like myself and a lot of traders in this market have learned a lot just from this market cycle alone in the last 6 months or so.
Oh, absolutely. It's an education. It's crypto is beautiful for young traders in the sense of education because you get more experience in these market cycles and price movements than you do in the equity market in like 10 years. I mean, we've already been through really, really unbearable bear markets, but we've made it through the other side and been up and down the mountain and whatnot. But one thing I did want to touch on, kind of lost my train of thought there, but bear strategies. Oh, yeah. So another thing that I think is important to understand is that not all assets top at the same time. For the Pi cycle top and Bitcoin specifically, instead of scaling out, I might just take it all off the table once we cross the Pi cycle top after witnessing it firsthand now and seeing it 4 times work correctly in history. So even if that doesn't work, I don't think I'm going to be too upset about it in hindsight. But the thing about it, it's interesting, and I think another thing to keep in mind is that Bitcoin, during the end of its runs, will typically get stagnant. Bitcoin dominance will really fall off a cliff, and we'll see Ethereum and all of the other really ignition assets, but of low quality fundamentals, things like Shiba Coin and Dogecoin and Ethereum Classic really going parabolic at the end of a bull cycle. Those are the things that are really indicative that we're getting close to a top and are interesting to pay attention to.
Yeah, we definitely have a lot of things to look out for, this time, especially because of that, pump mid cycle. We got introduced to a lot of metrics that were great for calling the top. So it's going to be interesting this time around to see kind of what is the first indication that we perhaps are losing some bullish momentum here. But CJ, what do you say we hop into our doges of the day today?
Why don't you start us off, my friend?
Yes, I think I should, so you don't steal my doge like you tend to do. But my doge today is Chainlink, and the reason why I'm picking Chainlink, a few reasons why. One, very encouraged by the volume. Two, very encouraged by the fact that it managed to climb above the 200 period SMA, which, as you can see here, I mean, this thing has been staunch resistance over the last 2 weeks, and now that we're sitting up above it, I mean, look at this chart. There really is like very little to no resistance above this current level for Link. Other assets that have managed to make a similar move above their moving average here have, shown those parabolic price action that we were talking about last week with assets like Solana, SRM, even VGX is an example of an asset that managed to get above its moving average and is now performing very well today. So Link, I'm encouraged by, this strong build in volume. Yesterday was a bit concerning with this doji candle, but the fact that we're continuing its momentum and we're above this moving average for me is what I was looking for. And, now I really think that there isn't too much resistance until our previous all-time high, all the way up at $53. So it's not going to be a straight shot, but I do like the possibility of some parabolic price action in the coming days here for Link, given what we're seeing in terms of the volume profile, given the price action we've seen in other assets across the board, and just given the fact that there's very little upward resistance here. So that is my doge of the day today, Chainlink.
A lot of assets to pick from. I mean, it's kind of like being in a candy store or something and seeing like all of these various opportunities because all these charts look pretty good. I'm going to share a couple today that I really like that I think have kind of been laggards or at least have not peaked yet in price. First of all, Monty, what do you think about Band? I know this has been one of your calls last week, and I mean, tremendous price action on that one. But are you still in this one?
Yep, still in this one, CJ. And, this is, I think, an example of an asset that, has found parity with its moving average, 200 period SMA, kind of moved up to that level, which is an indication for me that, this thing was coming to parity with the rest of the market. But now, it's almost in a similar position as Chainlink. And if you look, at other assets in the Solana ecosystem, CJ, like, Solana or SRM, they have performed tremendously well once they've gotten above that moving average. So, yeah, I'm very happy with the way this band trade has played out over the last week. That's basically more or less exactly what I was looking for is, a move up to this moving average. Still not quite there yet. So that leads me to believe that this does still have a bit of room to the upside. So I'm going to continue riding this, especially given, the overall market environment here.
Yeah, I mean, from a technical perspective, no weakness in the RSI, still relatively increasing in above average volume. Looks like a good target, being at about 11 or 10. So that'll be an interesting one to follow as well. Some of the NFT plays I wanted to mention here are Engine. I mean, this thing looks like it's ready to run. Really, it's just been a quiet trend after this W bottoming pattern, after our kind of phase of accumulation, after our selling climax right here. But Engine is one I've really liked, starting to see a minor increase in volume, but I just think it's a little bit due, considering how hot NFTs continue to be and how, I do believe they will have their day in the sun again, so to speak. And their charts are looking pretty good as well, above that 200 SMA. With the Williams alligators turning up as well. Chili's is another one that I think is really quiet. And something that I did notice is it doesn't really look like it's given a whole lot back to the market. I actually do want to measure this real quick to just see from the peak, how much did we retrace? All right, so we did retrace a pretty good amount, but no more than really a lot of other assets. And, now I think we're going back up again to test some of these critical levels. So I like Chili's as well. And then the last one, you guys know, in terms of the NFT space, is Mana, Decentraland. So I'm going to be watching these. Very strong convergence in the RSI. Not seeing any weakness yet from those either. So we'll see if Monday is truly the day that sets the tone for the overall week of the market, because it's looking good so far.
It is looking very good, CJ. And one thing I will add is actually Chili's just announced that they partnered with the Sacramento Kings, so they're branching into the NBA as well. Very encouraging stuff, and definitely an NFT play with one of the more clear-cut utilities in the space. So, like to see it.
Did you see the news? I mean, this wasn't that big of a deal, but it's kind of more funny than it is news. Did you see what Visa did? I think they bought an NFT and like advertised it, being on their balance sheet or whatnot. So, yeah, that's
Yes, and I saw this morning. I like that you talked about NFT plays because this morning on Twitter, that's pretty much all anybody's talking about. Wall Street Bets chairman is looking to buy an NFT, and I've seen everyone shilling their projects to him. So, yeah, I agree, CJ. I think that the underlyings of some of these NFT plays are going to have a very strong week on the back of that Visa news.
I do think NFTs are a bubble, and I do think they likely will come down. As if we get like a more macro top in Bitcoin. Nevertheless, I think they're here to stay, and I think as Bitcoin progresses to higher levels, say 50 or potentially 60K, I still think the NFTs are going to run until the end of this market cycle. So, with that being said, Monty, I'll pass back to you.
Yeah. Well, as always, thank you guys so much for watching. That's about all we got for today. And as always, if you want to come hang out with CJ and I, we are in the crypto room pretty much all day. You can try it for just $1 at marketrebellion.com/try crypto. Got a 24/7 chat room with traders from all around the world, some of whom were participating in this chat today. Thank you very much to those people. And we also have a pro charting service, an education curriculum that's always expanding, and just a whole lot more. So definitely go check that out. We also publish actionable trading insights. CJ published one for Bitcoin. I published one for Band just last week, both of which have performed tremendously well. So definitely go check that out. And if you're looking for a place to make those trades and trade your crypto, definitely head over to investvoyager.com, where you can trade 60 plus assets commission free. And if you use code REBEL25 when you sign up, you will get $25 in free Bitcoin. You can earn up to 9% on or 10% on USDC and 12% on your DOT. So definitely head over there and check them out. But thank you guys so much for watching. We'll be back tomorrow with another episode of the Daily Crypto Byte. So hang on to your handlebars, folks, and we will see you again tomorrow. Take care.